So I want to touch upon right now motivations for Saudi in pushing for the OPEC Plus production cuts. So one thing you have to understand before I begin is the effects of the production cuts, particularly right now with regards to American politics. So in November, there are the congressional midterm elections. The current party in power are the Democrats. They want to maintain power, but there's a potential for them to lose power based upon just the current numbers and figures of things. Now, the American public, if you're not familiar, they're awfully capricious and fickle. By that, I mean they can vote based upon their current whims of the moment. And particularly if a commodity such as energy, which has a big impact on the average American's wallet, if energy prices are skyrocketing through the roof, the average American is not going to understand the geopolitical nuances of why that is. They're just going to blame the party in charge. And being that the Democratic Party is in charge, they'll blame them. So that sets the backdrop for what I'm about to discuss. So the Riyadh knows this, and they don't want to do any favors because right now they don't really like the Biden administration. For one, they see him as having the baggage from being attached to the Barack Obama administration, who they blame for siding with Iran, which I don't know, you can say rightfully, wrongfully, but they say this due to the fact that the Barack administration pushed for a nuclear deal to lower sanctions on Iran, who is their arch enemy. So that's a notch against the Biden administration. They really dislike the Biden administration, as during his presidential campaign, the 46th president went out and said that they'd make Saudi Arabia a pariah state. This didn't win them any positivity within the corridors of Riyadh. Additionally, they're still angry from the July meeting when the U.S. president went and visited the Crown Prince MBS in Jeddah. So in July, Joe went to Jeddah, and following his conversation with Crown Prince MBS, who is now, upon becoming prime minister, the official head of state of Saudi Arabia, President Biden went out and told the media that he had a conversation with MBS regarding human rights issues, which infuriated Saudi Arabia that he said this. So during the meeting, they agreed upon, according to a bombshell Wall Street Journal report, production increases of 500,000 barrels of oil a day. Upon Joe Biden telling the media and MBS hearing this, Saudi said that they are going to only increase production by 100,000 barrels a day. So then the Biden administration emailed the Saudi energy minister, Abdulaziz bin Salman, and said that, hey, you're not increasing it by 500K despite what we agreed. And this email infuriated Abdulaziz, who went to MBS, and this increased his anger towards Washington. So then they apparently, according to this report, they said we need to push for OPEC plus production cuts to kind of give the middle finger to the current Washington administration. So this leads us to the meeting last week in OPEC plus, where Saudi, they lobbied hard, apparently. I mean, this is according to the report, and this is all behind closed doors. So OPEC Plus ultimately said we are going to cut production, therefore increasing energy prices. And Russia was also very pro these cuts, they need as much revenue streaming to their coffers as they can to fund their Ukraine invasion. But there were a lot of other OPEC Plus producers, apparently, according to this report, that weren't so gung-ho on the production cuts, particularly the Emiratis, as they're fearful that this could cause a global recession, particularly with inflationary spiral of everything. But one reason was to stick it to Washington politically, as I know how this will play out. Additionally, Riyadh, they want to get as much money as they can. So if you haven't been paying attention, Crown Prince MBS, he wants to radically diversify the Saudi economy by the year 2030. He wants to bring in global corporations and bring in 30 million tourists annually by 2030. To do this, they need to build obscene amounts of infrastructure to support these efforts. And they already committed 1.1 trillion USD within the next 7.5 years to build such infrastructure. So to do this, they need tons of cash in their coffers. So to get the cash in the coffers, they figured, why not jack up oil prices? So in my personal opinion, a big part of this push for OPEC plus production cuts, of course, it's to stick it to Washington, but also it's not necessarily siding with Russia, though it indirectly does. It's more so siding with Riyadh's own bank accounts, as they want to bring as much cash as they can while they can before the energy transition, so they can successfully diversify the economy away from hydrocarbons, as right now it's pretty much dependent upon non-green energy, which they rightfully want to change. Additionally, they weren't opposed to siding with Russia in this, and especially when it sticks it to Washington, as Russia hasn't been condemning Riyadh for human rights abuses. Russia's kept their mouth shut. Russia doesn't care, unlike the current administration in Washington. So that's a win for Russia, and or a reason to not oppose this move that would help Russia, rather. Though I don't think this is Riyadh necessarily moving towards Russia. So you have to understand that one of Russia's biggest allies is Iran, the regime in Tehran, which Tehran is Riyadh's biggest enemy. So I don't think they're going to go too gung-ho on Russia. This is one of the reasons why. On top of the fact that Russia, I don't think, would really give the security guarantees that the United States has given to Saudi. But again, this right now, they want to stick with the Washington. So if it helps Russia, they're not going to be too mad. Additionally, they realize that U.S. producers, they aren't going to pick up the slack. Particularly in the last 15 years, there's been a lot of drilling in the shale within the United States. But producers are tired of funding this. I mean, these production increases, it was all funded by massive amounts of debt, which Wall Street currently doesn't want. And then right now, it's definitely not desirable given that interest rates are skyrocketing. So taking on any debt to increase production gets increasingly expensive by the day. Additionally, they're being villainized by the current Washington administration. So if you're an oil company in the United States, why would you want to invest a ton of money against the interests and desires of Wall Street just to get villainized by not only the Washington administration, but also to build infrastructure that within the coming decades could become a brown asset in that it's undesirable and loses value due to the fact that it's not green. So that's not going to happen. But overall, there are a lot of reasons that push the Saudis to fight for OPEC plus production cuts. And a lot of it has to do with personal politics and slights, or at least perceived slights coming from Washington. And again, the biggest part is their own interest. They wouldn't be doing this if it was against their interests. In the past, Riyadh has been willing to go against their interests and to favor Washington's demands when they see the Washington administration power as being favorable towards them. But this is not the case as of now. So if they can both give Washington the middle finger and put money in their own pockets at the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars, they see it as why not.